on Friday, July 9th, 2021, a confirmation hearing for Ms. Amy Demboski, Municipal Manager. Let's go ahead and begin with introductions. Mr. Perez-Revilla, would you state your name for the record?
Cameron Perez-Revilla.
Forrest Dunbar.
Pete Peterson.
John Weddleton.
Jamie Allard. Crystal Kennedy.
Meg Valentine.
Christopher Constant.
Suzanne LaFrance.
Felix Rivera.
Amy Demboski.
Great, thank you. Apologies for starting a bit late. It's about 10:40 and we're noticed from 10:30 to 11. And is there anyone from the administration to introduce you, Ms. Demboski, or will you?
I am here to introduce myself.
Wonderful. Well, welcome back,
Thank
I
you.
should say. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to you to introduce yourself. And then we can wait on questions and then members just raise your hand to get in the queue and we'll take questions.
Absolutely, I'd love to. Well, I wanted to first say it's great to be back, though a different role. It's very exciting to be with you. I think I know most of you. For those of you that I don't know or haven't gotten to know very well, I'll just start briefly by telling you a little bit about myself. I'm a 1994 Chugach High School graduate. My husband and I met when I was in high school. We have two beautiful children that we raised. All of them are Chugach, well, both of them are Chugach grads. My son Riley is in the Air Force. He's stationed now back here at Elmendorf. Did you check your ID? Yeah, so he's a police officer in the Air Force. My daughter Kennedy is currently enrolled in a master's counseling program. She works for a nonprofit here in Anchorage. We are Alaskans, though I was brought by the military when my dad was in the service. I view myself as Alaskan. I mostly grew up here and raised my children here. I have spent a large majority of my career in the healthcare sector, building and managing multiple types of healthcare practices, dental mostly. My specialty was really corporate organization and reorganization, building businesses. It was business development and management. From there, I had a calling to public service, and that's where I got to join many of my friends on the assembly. And that calling to public service was really because I love our community. It's really my home. It's where I raised my children, and I wanted to give something back. So though I was fulfilled in my private sector life, I really wanted to do something different. And so I started with community councils. I served on multiple boards and commissions, including the Chugach River Parks and Rec Board of Supervisors, as well as the Municipal Budget Advisory Commission, which I was the chair of prior to my time on the assembly. And then on my time on the assembly, I always like to pride myself in the fact that, to me, I have always said a good idea or a bad idea can come from either side or any person. So I like to vet issues on their merit, and I like to work collaboratively to get resolution to those things. I have often prided myself on the fact as well that my very first piece of legislation was with one of my mentors, frankly, Senator L.B. Gray Jackson, and it was a public safety piece that I was really proud of, and I think it did well to serve the community. My time on the assembly, we'll shift past that, and I have since then worked for the state. I started off as Deputy Chief of Staff to the Governor, in which I was responsible for the budget operations of the Governor's office. I had the DMVA, the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, Department of Public Safety, and Department of Corrections. I was their liaison in the governor's office. I worked in the governor's office through the first section, and then I transferred to the Department of Commerce, where I left my role recently as Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Commerce. On my resume, I won't list them all. You can see all the different divisions within the state that reported to me. Additionally, I was tasked with multiple special projects from the governor. I was in charge of regulation reform for all departments within the state. So whether it was a DOT regulation or a DEC regulation, they all came to me, and I worked directly with the Chief of Staff and the Governor to vet and review regulations for the state. That was a significant project, one that took a lot of my time, but it helped me really learn the state system really well and gain a lot of connections that, frankly, as municipal manager, I believe those connections will be super valuable to the municipality. Just to talk a little bit, shift a little bit away from my time at the state, I do want to highlight, I've always been a person who believes I want to learn more. I want to know more. I walk into a situation, I don't assume I have all the facts, but I try to walk in and be open to new information coming that way, or somebody presenting an argument to change my mind. With that curiosity comes my desire to pursue my educational goals. I'm always trying to learn, and my time on the assembly actually is what spurred me into doing some of my different degrees that I have. Just for the record, I do have a bachelor's degree in justice from UAA. I have a bachelor's degree in history from UAA. I also have a master's of business administration with an emphasis in finance from Columbia Southern University. I also have a master's of public administration with an emphasis in public or criminal justice administration. I actually have to look down because I can't always remember. I do have a graduate certificate in corrections, excuse me, that's not a graduate certificate. I just have a certificate in corrections from Purdue University Global. But I do have 2 graduate certificates, one in public administration and one in environmental management. So as you can see, I may not be a master of everything, but I am very curious about a lot of topics. And that curiosity has led me to pursue my educational goals, because as an assembly member, I felt it just made me a better community steward. It made me a better involved participant in the process. But as an administrator, what this role is, it gives me a lot of exposure to a lot of different topics, and it helps me really fine tune what are we doing, what are the ancillary potential impacts of what we're doing, who do I need to engage in order to bring this issue to a resolution. So that is me in a nutshell. I tried to go a little bit, I know we ran a little late, so I wanted to just kind of get it out there, so I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Demboski. We have 2 members in the queue. First, Mr. Constant, and then Mr. Rivera.
Thank you, Mr. Demboski. The charter is interesting in the way it defines the appointment of the municipal manager. Essentially, it's based only on qualifications. It's the only job within all of them that has that limitation. And it's interesting, and I recommend everyone reads that section. And I personally deem you qualified. We'll see where the body lands. But my question then, assuming that, is that the administration has provided for us, you may have a copy of all of the appointees, and some of it suggests a reorganization. I'm hoping you can help the members understand the kind of nature of the proposed reorganization, even though it might be in draft form, and help us to see there might be some questions about specific positions that we don't know that we might want to hear about. Thank you.
I'm happy to. So specifically, this is the guidance that I've given all department directors. Until such time the assembly approves a reorg, we are operating under the current established organization structure and code. That is the law. We will follow the law. But we are in probably some of the new titles you've seen. I think I heard a little bit when I walked in about that. I want to be very clear that I worked very, very differently. I was a member of the Brunswick transition team, not a member of the campaign, but a member of the transition team. And as a member of the transition team, I was chartered with hiring people for specific positions, and the goal was to try to fill existing PCNs without creating a bunch of new PCNs. So, for example, there's a lot of questions that have come up about Director of Community Engagement, Director of Legislative Affairs. Those are just working titles. Those are existing special assistant 2 positions that are in the budget right now. They're currently, they have a different working title, but those all reside within the office of the mayor. They're not department heads. So it's my understanding that those special assistants will not be subject to confirmation. There's another one, for example, we're rebringing back Director of Public Works. So he was formerly the OMB Director, Lance Wilbur, and he will now be Director of Public. So that is a position that is coming back. So that will be one that I anticipate will be subject to confirmation. He will be a department director. And how that exact org chart is going to work out with which departments will report to Lance, that has not been finalized yet. Another position that I've been asked about is a Director of Enterprise Services, Colby Hickel. that is a position that effectively, that's her working title. It's currently a position that had been a PCN for Deputy Municipal Manager, and I'm utilizing her. Frankly, I think we have a lot of issues going on with capital projects, big ones, the port. And I feel we've been doing this for a decade with the port, and we have major infrastructure improvements that are planned for AWWU. Solid Waste Services is just finishing the transfer station. I think it's really important that we put an emphasis on getting over the hump with the port, especially. And I feel like the administration needs to commit to the assembly and to the community that we're serious about doing that. And as municipal manager, I'm one person responsible for the administration of the entire city. And I feel like I can be most effective if I have somebody to assist me in that process. So again, a lot of these positions are existing PCNs. Through typical normal processes at the city, people are allowed to have working titles that maybe don't exactly match the PCN, but I'm happy to clarify those for you because we want to make sure that the assembly understands where all the moving pieces are. And I anticipate the reorg will probably coincide with the budget. And so you should see it September, October timeframe is when I'm anticipating, probably early October is when we'll come through. And I will line by line make sure it's very clear to everyone where those pieces are shifting.
Great, thank you, Mr. Demboski. Mr. Constant, did you have any follow-up?
Actually, no, you captured it all. The only other job I thought that I don't know is the Director of Building Services. And, if that one is gonna be one doing the reorganization or if that fits in some other classification.
So that one, it's just like Director of Public Works. So you'll remember, so effectively, the position that Adam Trombley is taking is Chris Schuette's old position, right? We're changing the title of it, so it'll be Executive Director of Development Services. But within Development Services, you have to recognize there's two significant pieces. One is the Public Works piece. So it's a lot of capital projects, it's a lot of that. The other is Building Services. So these are people who want to build things in our community, planning. It'll be, permitting. I mean, there'll be a lot of things in that. So it's a clear understanding of what roles and what functions the departments play and those staff play. And then we have obviously one person, Adam Trombley would be the executive director overseeing all basically development services, whether it's the public works side or whether it's the development side.
Great, thank you, Mr. Constant. Thank you, Mr. Demboski. We've got Mr. Rivera, then Mr. Perez-Gardia, then Ms. Zalatel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the introduction, Ms. Demboski. I'm glad to hear about your curiosity because I think the municipal manager is eventually expected to be a master of everything. So a couple of things. First, and I think this goes to you, but also to any of the other appointees in the audience. Coming into this position, do you have any priorities for you that you think you're going to be spearheading and moving forward on? And then second is, you mentioned in your introduction that you are going to, that you have state connections that you believe will be valuable to the municipality of Anchorage. Can you delve into how you think those will be valuable?
Absolutely, I appreciate that. Normally as I take notes, I just don't want to forget your questions. So I'll start with priorities, and it was the priorities that I told many of these directors from the beginning. Number one, people were hired because they were the subject matter experts and they were hired for their skills and ability. So we want efficient operations. I've also emphasized the fact that I'm huge on communication and transparency. So it is very important to me that our department directors and our employees have the ability to communicate if they have concerns through their directors, or if their directors are not responsive directly to me, and if I'm not doing my job to the mayor. So for me, transparency is a big issue, and I think many assembly members who have worked with me will tell you, you get what you see with me. I tell you what I think. I'm responsive to feedback. But I'm also very respectful of other people's perspectives, because at the end of the day, I think it takes a collaborative, positive communication flow in order to successfully achieve what we need to achieve for the city. So those are my priorities. with respect to the state connections, you know, whether I was in the governor's office or in commerce, it never changed. I would get calls from mayors, municipal managers from across the state saying, hey, I have this issue. Who should I talk to? And I think just the fact that we're Alaskans, Alaska is a really small town for being a very big state. We know people, and so I don't have to be the subject matter expert on things, but when I know, for example, you know, maybe there's a fine from the DEC relating to solid waste services. I know the commissioner of DEC very well. I can pick up the phone and say, let's walk through this. Can we negotiate a solution? Who should I talk to in your shop that's the appropriate chain of command? And I think that's important to emphasize, because just because we know each other doesn't mean that maybe I should pick up the phone and call you. You have to understand your professional boundaries and the appropriate way to approach those. But that's why I say I do believe on both sides of the political aisle, I think legislators will tell you, sorry, I thought I decided to silence my phone. Legislators will tell you that I'm pretty easy to work with. And it's because, to me, I don't care who's bringing me the problem, I want to help them fix it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Demboski. Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Mr. Perez-Verdia?
Hi. Well, I think actually you answered my first question, which was the priorities, and you answered the second one a little bit, but maybe you can add to it. I'm curious. You talked a little bit about your approach, and I don't know you, so I'm curious if you could share a little bit about your leadership approach. How do you show up in your work? What can we expect in terms of our working relationship?
That is a fantastic question. Thank you, Assemblymember Perez-Verdia. I would say my approach is situational, but it's leadership by example. I show up to work on time or early. I make it a point of pride to try to beat the municipal attorney, though it's difficult at times. He shows up pretty early. But I'm very collaborative. You know, in an emergency situation, it's command and control, right? And in a workplace situation where we all have to get to this end goal, I want feedback, because when I walk into a room, I might have a problem, but I'm not going to come to you without a solution, but it doesn't mean my solution is the best solution. So I'm very collaborative. I think it's important as a leader to serve your employees. It gives me nothing but a great deal of humility and pride to be able to work with so many wonderful municipal employees. And I think leadership starts with service. So, and directors will tell you this. At our first directors meeting, I told them my job was to serve them, and it is. It's also, in serving the citizens of Anchorage, is to ensure that those directors and our employees are doing their job and fulfilling the mission that we are required to do. So there's accountability. But at the same time, I believe you have to enter public service with humility and that mindset that I'm here to help you. How can I help you be successful? And clear communication, that is so essential when it comes to leadership, because people don't know what they need to do all the time unless you clearly outline it and make sure you both understand what those expectations are.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Demboski. Ms. Zelatel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here, Ms. Demboski. We've had a couple of interactions and really great that she's familiar with the email your questions on the agenda system and getting those answered. It's been really great. My question is, you know, looking at this appointees and the potential structure that might be coming forward, it seems like an expansion of executive level positions. And I'm finding that a bit at odds with the mayor's previous statement about looking for efficiencies in government, and particularly a hiring freeze or hiring pause. You know, I appreciate good organization, but I also want to ensure that we have the service delivery on the front lines of the municipality, and we're not sacrificing that to possibly fund additional executive positions. So to that end, are the PCNs allocated here that were previously empty all funded in the current budget, or will there be likely budget increases requested for these positions in this new structure?
My expectation, thank you for the question, Assemblymember Zelatel. I think that's an excellent question. Let me step back for a second. In my previous role in the private sector, I was tasked with corporate reorganizations. And what I found often in some of the organizations that were not successful is they had too big of a span of control. Meaning you might have one person with way too many reports and they couldn't quite get it done. So what we're trying to do is align mission and function with appropriate span of control. Though you may see some reallocations between, okay, this department has this and this department has that. The overall intent of this administration is to bring down the actual cost of government. So for example, I wouldn't anticipate you would see a massive budget reduction in public safety, but you might have other departments that actually have performed very well, and we could shift some of those funds other places. I'm not expecting an increment. I'm expecting potentially reallocations, but not an increment. And actually, I think you'll see when the budget guidance comes out, which has not been developed yet. When the budget guidance comes out, I think you're not going to see a one size fits all. I think this mayor will be very focused on strategic mission alignment and appropriate budgets to go with that.
Please follow up.
Yeah, there's.
And we are running a bit behind. Apologies to folks waiting. We'll probably have another 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, if there are others in the queue, I can go ahead.
Go ahead with the follow-up.
Okay, the follow-up is simply, we have a lot of attrition kind of right now in the municipality. People are retiring. Is in ensuring, I guess I just want to stress that those reallocations should prioritize ensuring that service line or that expertise is in the departments, not just necessarily at the executive level. I guess it's more of a comment than a question.
Absolutely, I completely concur.
Thank you, Ms. Zalatil. Thank you, Ms. Demboski. Mr. Dunbar?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Demboski. Good to see you again. So during the campaign, this is a question I've asked before to members of the administration, and I'm going to ask next week in the Budget Committee as well. So during the campaign, two of Mayor Bronson's major promises were there'd be a 5 to 8% cut to every department except for the APD, and then there would be a 25% property tax reduction for businesses impacted by COVID-19. So I guess my question is, and I understand that it's still very early days, but at what stage are those proposals in development now? And how do you anticipate those 5 to 8% budget cuts to each department impacting the services delivered?
That's a great question. Thank you for that, Assemblymember Dunbar. I would say, I would just reiterate, this mayor has been in office for 1 week and 1 day. And that being the case, the direction I've given to all department directors is to do a status evaluation of year spend versus actuals of what they have left to evaluate. So we're very much in the evaluation phase, but I do believe they will come back at the next directors meeting to be able to give me that information, and we'll do a determination there. Okay, first we have to get a picture of where we're at, and then we can make a decision on where we're going to go. And I want to just reiterate, it is not my expectation that this administration will develop a broad-based, every department has to cut 5 to 8%. I would be surprised if that's the direction. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Overall, I think you're going to see a reduction, probably in that neighborhood. But first, we don't know what we don't know, right? I'm a data-driven person. I need to first know where we are in our yearly spend and what opportunities we have. And then from there, the mayor, once I'm able to present that data to the mayor, then the mayor will make the determination of what his budget guidance will be.
Any follow-up, Mr. Dunbar?
Okay.
Okay, so I don't see anyone else in the queue. I know Mr. Constant, you had a comment?
So Mayor Wirch had a policy on communications with the assembly for staff. Are there any intended updates to that policy?
Thank you for the question, Assemblymember Constant. I'm not familiar with that policy.
So the policy established that the department heads needed to be included in communications with assembly members, and essentially on their end, the staff's end, they had to make sure their department heads had to be involved. I guess I asked the question because I've heard reports that the administration is requiring all communications between even department heads and the assembly members run through your office.
Thank you for the question. I will just flat out say I have asked for it to be CC'd on those communications, And the way I presented it to staff was simply a learning opportunity. I want to know, I have been away from the assembly for 3 years. I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what the current topics are necessarily. So it's an opportunity, and this is exactly what I said to them, maybe not verbatim, but I said, this is an opportunity for me and the mayor to get up to speed on the pressing issues. And then, I mean, that's the reason.
Right, and I just would imagine that at some point, it will be overwhelming, the department heads, so they can do that. I'm not, want to get in your business on how you operate, but I want to make sure that we understand how communications are happening on the mayor's side of the team, so that we can make sure we understand the parameters, so thank you.
And Assemblymember Costa, I'm happy to keep you updated as those changes happen. Again, I'm just in the data gathering phase, just to figure out what the temperature is in the room and what issues are burning within the community.
Thank you, Ms. Demboski. Thank you, Mr. Constant. Ms. Allard?
Thank you. So, hi, Ms. Demboski. So I know how important it is, and you were on the assembly at one point for us to have that free communication with the directors. And I absolutely support the whole philosophy that I just kind of want to be in the realm of it right now, so I know what's going on with everybody. But I just want to encourage the administration to allow us to have that freedom with the directors in the future. I know that while I've been on the assembly, it's been very difficult as far as being able to have that one-on-one communication, and I just think it's really important that sometimes the directors speak a little bit more freely, and it can help both sides. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Allard. Any other questions or comments from members? Okay, seeing none,
Can I
thank
say
you.
one more
Of
thing?
course.
I just want to make it very, very, very clear, there has been no directive or prohibition from this administration that directors can't talk to assembly members. I want to be clear about that. I hope that wasn't conveyed. But just to go on Assemblymember Allard's comments, I think it's really important for the assembly to be able to understand what's going on in the city. And this administration is committed to ensuring transparency so you guys can know what's happening.
Thank you, Ms. Demboski. And we'll go ahead and adjourn this work session and move directly into the next one with Chief Stragi.
Yeah. I'm gonna say a little bit. Oh, I already have that one.